Neighbours from Outer Space, Chapter 5. But Captain Spotless isn't real, I said. He's just an animated character in a TV commercial. A flashing. What are you talking about? Asked Minivan. He's big, and he's tough, and he's superpowered soap bubbles that shoot out of his hands. I've seen it with my own two eyes. But he's only a cartoon, I insisted. What's a cartoon? Aspirin asked. A two-dimensional drawing that... Captain Spotless isn't a drawing, Motor Royal interrupted. He moves. I know, I said. Animators make a whole bunch of drawings and put one frame on each frame of the video. Then when you watch the commercial, it looks as if Captain Spotless is moving. But he is moving, Minivan insisted. He flies faster than germs can multiply. Yes, Motor Royal agreed. Grit and grime are no match for the captain. Then they all began to sing. Captain Spotless came to call. Now we have no dirt at all. Thanks to the captain, it's the truth. Our whole house shines like his gold tooth. I let out an exasperated sigh. Don't you aliens have any idea of how TV works? No, said Minivan. Well, it all starts with a television camera that records an image, I began. The image forms in a tube that converts the light into an electrical signal, splitting it into more than 500 horizontal lines, which... My voice trailed off. Motor Royal, Aspirin, and a Minivan were gazing at me with vacant eyes and slack jaws. They looked as if they had suddenly fallen into a collective coma. Are you all right? I asked. Minivan shook his head and his eyes began to focus. I think I have a brain cramp, he said. The people on our planet aren't very good with numbers, Motor Royal explained. Or computers, Aspirin added. Or wires and plugs, Minivan said with distaste. Look, it doesn't matter, I said with a wave of my hand. The only thing you need to know is that Captain Spotless doesn't exist. He's just pretend. Suddenly, Aspirin burst into tears. Why are you being so selfish? She blubbered. Can't you see we're desperate? Please, Russell, Minivan pleaded. Life on X10 is totally bogus without the flashies. Motor Royal put his arm around his wife. What is it that you want? He asked me. We are a poor planet, but perhaps we can find some form of payment that will please you. For example, do you need any sand? I don't want your sand, I said incredulously. I don't want anything from you. Motor Royal lifted himself to his full height. Despite his pale moon... Motor Royal lifted himself to his full height. Despite his pale moon face and his silly jogging suit, he looked pretty impressive. We may not be technologically advanced, but we're not stupid, he said sternly. Well, not compared to the barbarians from Praxbox 12, anyway, added Minivan. Motor Royal shot him a look, then turned back to me. Clearly, you have some reason for not wanting to help us. What is it? We deserve to know. I felt my knees quiver. The last thing I wanted was to get a bunch of outer space creatures mad at me. I mean, sure, they said they weren't going to vaporize me. But how do I know that they weren't lying just to get on my good side? Look, I said with a nervous laugh. I think you're talking to the wrong guy. I mean, haven't you seen any sci-fi movies? You're supposed to say, take me to your leader. They all stared at me blankly. Oh, that's right, I stammered. You only watch commercials. Well, hey, how about if I just give you directions to City Hall and leave it at that? If Captain Spotless doesn't wish to help us, that's up to him, Aspirin said seriously. But at least let him tell us face to face. Yes, urged Minivan. Can't we just talk to him? I was just so frustrated, I forgot all about being shy. Don't you understand? I practically shouted. Captain Spotless is just a bunch of flickering dots on a TV screen. Asking him to save your planet is like asking a flashlight to recite Shakespeare. Aspirin burst out sobbing again. Go home, Motorola told me, and think about what you're doing. The fate of the Zerubbabel 10 is in your hands. It is not, I protested. Go, and if you choose wrong, may the sand of 1,000 beaches clog your sinuses for all eternity. I know an insult when I hear one, even if it is a transgalactic insult. Everyone on Earth thinks aliens must be super intelligent, I said angrily. Boy, would they laugh if they ever met you. The moment the words left my mouth, I wished I could take them back. After all, there was a time when I thought Captain Spotless was real too, and I wouldn't ever want anyone to call me stupid. But it was too late to turn back now. Motorola looked furious, and for all I knew, he might suddenly decide to rearrange my molecules into something small and slimy. With my heart pounding, I climbed out the window and returned home. Back in my bedroom, I pulled off my jeans and crawled into bed, but I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Minivan and his family. They were so sincere and so desperate, I couldn't stay mad at them for long. In fact, the more I thought about it, the sorrier I felt for them. Their fellow Zerubbabelians were counting on them, and now they were going to have to return home and tell the underground that their mission had been a failure. But sympathy wasn't all I felt for Minivan and his parents. The more I thought about it, the more I began to feel, well, sort of strangely connected to them. Maybe it was because we both loved TV commercials so much. Or maybe it was because I knew what it was like to believe that people you see in TV commercials are real. I got up and walked down the hall to the bathroom. I splashed some cold water on my face and stared at myself in the mirror. It's a bizarre feeling to find yourself identifying with a bunch of aliens from outer space, and I guess I wanted to reassure myself that I was the same old lucky Russell Brinkerhoff that I had been before I met them. Luckily, I was, on the outside at least. I mean, I hadn't grown an auxiliary antenna on my head or anything, but inside, well, that was a different story. I felt myself wondering if maybe Minivan and his parents were right. Maybe Captain Spotless was real. Maybe the cartoon Captain Spotless I saw on TV was just an artist's rendering of the real thing. Pretty soon my mind was racing, imagining that the makers of the Spotless Cleanser had created the captain in their laboratories by sprinkling a corpse with bathroom cleanser and then blasting it with electricity, sort of like a squeaky clean version of Frankenstein's monster. Get a grip, Russell, I said to the boy in the mirror. You've been watching too many horror movies. Okay, so maybe I was getting a little carried away. Captain Spotless didn't live in a condo behind the Spotless Cleanser factory, and he wasn't going to fly to X10 and fight off the barbarian hordes. But what if there was a way to make the Praxboxians think he was? Suppose, for example, the X-10 Underground could create a life-size hologram of the captain and project him in front of the barbarians. Or what if they found a computer whiz who could create a reality-based program where Captain Spotless destroys the Pax Boxians? I was so excited I ran back to my room and turned on my computer. My plan was to log on to the internet, track down a hologram specialist and a virtual reality programmer, and pick their brains. But before my modem could even begin dialing, I realized that apparently my apparent premium plan was only store brand quality. Sure, a hologram of Captain might frighten the barbarians for a few minutes, but if he couldn't talk or move, there wasn't going to convince them to hop into their spaceships and blast off in search of a bigger and better planets to enslave. Besides, once they'd found out that they'd been duped, they'd probably exact a terrible revenge on the Zerabiblians, not to mention a certain Earth boy by the name of Russell T. Brinkerhoff. As for the virtual reality scheme, that was even more lame. How were Minivan and his parents going to convince the barbarians to put on goggles and gloves and log on to computers? And even if they did, the creatures only had to hit the escape button to realize the stuff they were experiencing in the virtual world wasn't real. And then came the terrible revenge plot, complete with an untimely death of little old me. I pictured an enormous lice-infested barbarians squeezing my skinny body like a tube of sparkled toothpaste. And with that image, I finally drifted off into an uneasy sleep.